Welcome back to the podcast. So, today we're going to be diving into a topic that should be literally on the top of mind for every single guy out there: how to naturally optimize your testosterone. Because testosterone is one of, if not the most important hormone that drives motivation, libido, energy, muscle growth, fat loss, how good you feel day to day, overall your quality of life. You with high testosterone versus you with low testosterone, two very different experiences of life and people in general. So it's important that you're optimizing it so you can maximize all the good things that come with high levels of testosterone and avoid all the negatives that come with low testosterone. But we do have some bad news. Testosterone levels have dropped pretty dramatically over the last few decades. To throw some statistics at you, studies show that an average man's testosterone level has decreased by about 1% per year since the 1980s. That means, let's say your grandfather had a testosterone level of 700 nanograms per deciliter at your age. You right now might be sitting around 400, which is insane. Like, that's a very significant drop. So, needless to say, it's not looking good for the overall population, but lucky for you, you're here listening to this podcast. We're going to get you right. So, by the end of today's episode, you'll have everything you need to push yourself to the top of that range naturally. So, first, we're going to cover why testosterone is so important for your health and how it affects literally everything from sleep to energy to fat loss to muscle growth. Then, we're going to get into what you can do in respect to sleep, gut health, nutrition, environmental toxins, and lastly, supplementation to naturally maximize your testosterone. So, why does testosterone matter? Why is it such a buzzword? Well, it plays a massive role in how you feel, how you perform, and how you show up as a person. Like I said, your overall quality of life. It was actually so if you have low testosterone, it doesn't always just manifest as, let's say, low energy. It could mean less drive, less ambition in every aspect of your life, lower mood, less stress resilience, and overall just less capability to achieve not just your physical goals, but any goals that you have in life. Not to mention the lack of ability to transform your physique, which is likely why you're watching this video. So, some good questions to ask yourself to kind of self diagnose in a way. Maybe you're hitting the gym. Maybe you think you're doing everything right per se. You got somewhat of a optimal approach. Let's go with that. But you're not seeing results, or maybe let's say your motivation is low in all aspects of your life. Your libido isn't where it should be if you're young. It should be high, and you're struggling to feel like yourself. Maybe you're not as aggressive. These are all like pretty decent signs that your testosterone might not be optimized or as high as it should be. And just to quickly break down how testosterone affects each of these areas, just to give you a little bit of a deeper understanding before we get into how to maximize it. When it comes to motivation and drive, testosterone influences dopamine pathways in the brain. So you can think of dopamine, it's like your go-getter neurotransmitter, your reward chemical responsible for the pleasure and reinforcement that drive goal directed actions. So, low testosterone can impair dopamine signaling, which can result in you feeling unmotivated. In respect to libido, testosterone directly impacts the hypothalamus, a part of the brain responsible for regulating sexual behavior. It also boosts nitric oxide production, which that improves blood flow. So, when people are suffering with low testosterone, and I do mean suffering, because if you have low testosterone, you are suffering if you know what high testosterone feels like. They might be struggling with very poor quality sleep. And this is because testosterone levels naturally rise during deep sleep, restorative sleep. When we have low testosterone, the hormone signaling needed to promote this deep sleep is disrupted. This creates a vicious cycle pretty much where poor sleep reduces testosterone production, which in turn diminishes your ability to achieve restful sleep. So it's a pretty bad cycle you can get in. Then obviously your ability to build muscle and lose body fat is impaired because testosterone is a key regulator of protein synthesis, essentially the process by which your body repairs and builds muscle fibers after exercise. Simultaneously, testosterone influences fat metabolism by promoting the breakdown of stored fat, which is lipolysis, and preventing the storage of new fat cells. Then, of course, your energy, your mood, your confidence, they're all affected because, like we spoke about with dopamine, testosterone modulates several neurotransmitters in the brain. That's why motivation goes down, and then serotonin, which influences energy levels, mood, and emotional resilience, also goes down as well. So, fatigue, lack of focus, a lesser sense of pleasure in everyday activities, if you will, are all common, and it can also make irritability and anxiety worse by disrupting that serotonin regulation. So, needless to say, testosterone is far more than just a hormone that makes you look good. It impacts almost every aspect of what makes you feel energetic, motivated, confident, and overall your whole quality of life, to be honest. So, the good news, by the end of this podcast, you'll know exactly what steps to take to naturally optimize your testosterone levels and start living at your full potential. So, starting with the basics, you got to have these covered. Lifestyle changes to maximize testosterone. Arguably, the most important factor that will move the needle the most by far is sleep quality. So, not only how long you sleep, but how much deep restorative and REM sleep you get each night. Your body doesn't produce testosterone at random times. It follows a rhythm, a schedule. Like the bulk of your testosterone production happens during sleep, especially in the early hours of the morning. So essentially, poor sleep equals poor testosterone. Studies show that even 1 week of poor sleep can lead to a 10 to 15% drop in testosterone levels. Think about that. Just 1 week, late nights can drop your testosterone by 15%. Now, if you're someone who has never really cared about your sleep hygiene, your sleep quality, maybe your sleep schedule is all over the place, which that was me a couple years ago. You're looking at a ton of blue light before bed, and you've been doing that for years, not conscious of overhead lights before bed. You got all the lights on in the house, like just the second before you go to bed, you turn them off. Well, 1 week of poor sleep can drop your testosterone by 15%. So imagine compounding that over years, maybe your whole life till you're watching this podcast. So, what can we do about it? Some super simple tips you can implement to improve your sleep quality are: one, create a sleep friendly environment. Your bedroom should be a bat cave, so you want to keep the room cool, dark, and quiet. Invest in blackout curtains. Best investment you can make. They're not that expensive. Use a white noise machine if needed, and then you want to keep the temperature around 65 Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius, which is ideal for most people. Next, we want to stick to a consistent sleep schedule. Your body thrives on routine. If you go to bed and wake up at the same time, plus or minus, let's say 30 minutes every day, even on weekends, or at least, let's say, 5 or 6 nights out of the week, your sleep quality and sleep architecture, so the amount of time you're spending in deep sleep and REM sleep, will dramatically improve. This will help regulate your circadian rhythm, supporting your body's cortisol curve throughout the day, which we want to spike in the morning and then taper off in the evening. It'll support your natural melatonin production as well at night, so it'll make it easier for you to fall asleep. Next, we want to limit blue light exposure before bed. Blue light from your phone, laptop, TV will suppress melatonin by up to 70%. And melatonin, if you're not familiar with it, it's just the hormone that helps you fall asleep, so and stay asleep as well. So limit screen time at least an hour before bed, or use blue light blocking glasses. I got some from a company called Raw Optic. Pretty solid ones. You can get some on Amazon that do the trick. Just make sure they're not clear, because those don't really work as well. Next, we want to cut back on stimulants. So caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours, meaning that if you're having an afternoon coffee, you're having pre-workout at, let's say, 2 p.m. or after 2 p.m., that caffeine is still in your system when you're trying to fall asleep. And even if you think you can fall asleep, like you can fall asleep, let's say, with caffeine in your system, it is 100% taking a hit on that deep sleep and REM sleep. So the quality of your sleep is taking a hit from that caffeine. Personally, I like to stop caffeine around 12 p.m. And then I got to touch on alcohol. Absolute worst for sleep and your testosterone. It'll absolutely wreck your sleep. So if you're drinking more than once a week in excess, that's a few nights of terrible sleep. So that's something you should address immediately. Next, we want to get morning sunlight exposure to help set your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm. I like to aim for at least 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight exposure first thing in the morning. So wake up, make a beeline to my balcony. I got super lucky. The sun just directly hits my balcony. Don't know how that happened, but magical. And yeah, I set my circadian rhythm that way. I pair it with a cold plunge. You don't need to pair it with a cold plunge, but the change in body temperature can help set circadian rhythm as well. So if you're watching this and your sleep schedule is pretty poor right now, some simple things you can do to within 3 days, you can set your new circadian rhythm. So just wake up, set that alarm. It's going to be hard that first day. Get outside immediately, cold shower to change your body's core temperature. And then you'd actually want some caffeine this time. I usually delay caffeine, but you'd want some caffeine. Then if you want to get out and do some exercise, that'll help set it as well. So if you do that for 3 days, you can set your circadian rhythm pretty damn fast. And then by day 4, you'll be good to go. You'll be waking up at that time before your alarm. So if you can implement those things, you're basically all the way there, 95% at least to perfect sleep. So if you're listening to this right now and you don't do any of those things, then I would start with one or two. Then when they become a habit, which you get them ingrained to your routine, then I'd add another. That becomes a habit. I'd add another, and so forth. So soon you'll be like me, getting 100% on Whoop pretty much every night when I try to. So the next area that most people don't associate with testosterone, but is absolutely critical, is gut health. Your gut influences every system in your body, including your hormones. So if your gut is out of whack, the likelihood your testosterone is as well is pretty high. So you want to think of your gut as like the foundation of your body's internal ecosystem. It's where nutrients are absorbed, toxins are processed, inflammation is regulated. If that foundation is shaky, everything else, including your hormones, will feel it. So studies have shown that gut health is directly tied to hormone balance, energy levels, mood. And this is a side note, but if you look up any organ in your body, gut axis, you will see that your gut affects literally every single organ, like gut thyroid axis, gut liver axis, all to say take care of your gut. Now, there are a few ways your gut directly impacts testosterone specifically. One is nutrient absorption, so things like zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, they won't be absorbed properly if your gut isn't functioning well, which means you're not absorbing those critical building blocks for testosterone, even if you're potentially eating the right foods. Next is inflammation. Chronic gut inflammation, which means inflammation over a long period of time, triggers the release of cortisol, which, when chronically elevated, directly suppresses testosterone. So this creates a pretty vicious cycle where inflammation lowers testosterone, and low testosterone makes inflammation harder to manage. Next is leaky gut, which is when the gut lining becomes compromised. Toxins and pathogens can now enter your bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there. This triggers an immune response, and this is something I've dealt with in the past, and that constant immune activation puts your body into a stress state, again, diverting resources away from testosterone production. Then there's gut dysbiosis, which is when you have opportunistic or bad bacteria overgrowth in the gut, gut infections, parasites, all things that will bring down your testosterone. So other than the rare case you have a gut issue, which will require a direct targeted approach, we can support our gut by doing some fairly simple things, again, just like our sleep. The first big needle mover that will sort pretty much 90% of your problems out is focusing on a whole nutrient dense diet. So prioritizing whole foods, getting rid of the unprocessed foods, having 3 to 4 servings of fruit and veg per day to have variety and diversity of the gut microbiome, have a good amount of fiber because it feeds your beneficial gut bacteria and helps them thrive. The next is incorporating probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are live bacteria that can support a healthy gut microbiome, and you can get these from fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi. Prebiotics you can get from foods like garlic, onions, bananas, and asparagus, and together these create an environment where good bacteria can flourish. The next is avoiding gut irritants. So certain foods, for some people, if you're eat something and it just does not agree with you, you're going to know what food does that to you. But these foods can inflame your gut and harm your gut microbiome, things like excessive sugar, processed foods, alcohol. Additionally, I'd pay attention to common food sensitivities like gluten and dairy, for example. May not be an issue for everyone, but for some, they can cause issues. So if that's you, I cut them out for a couple weeks, start implementing the few tips I just went over there, and then see if you can slowly reincorporate them. And if you have a history of a lot of antibiotic use because they destroy the beneficial bacteria in your gut, I'd follow up with a good quality probiotic to rebuild your gut microbiome afterward. And if you want to take an extra step, say you're someone right now who is doing everything right, maybe you're still having gut issues and you have the budget for it, you want to be optimal. I just get a stool analysis to give you the full picture of your gut microbiome, see if there's anything potentially holding your body back, so you don't have to do any guesswork. You get it done, you see, oh, this is holding me back, fix it, and now your testosterone can come up because there's no longer a stressor pulling you back down. So pretty much really valuable because it takes the guesswork out of everything. I've done a few now, not by choice, but out of necessity because I have struggled with gut issues, gut dysbiosis, SIBO in the past, which have all been fixed, and those were holding my testosterone down. Once I fixed those things, my body's ability to be in a favorable hormonal environment then came up, and my mood, energy, my immune system, it all regulated. Testosterone came up along with it. So optimize your gut health, and you're setting yourself up for some pretty optimal levels of testosterone. Now, the next part involved in optimizing your testosterone is, of course, your nutrition. Think of it like building a house. Testosterone is one of the foundation blocks, but without the right supplies, like healthy fats, key vitamins, and minerals, you're basically just trying to build a house out of straw. So, yes, macronutrients, of course, your protein, your carbs, your fats, they're all important and will dictate largely how you look. But where people miss this kind of micronutrient involvement in how you look is micronutrients will dictate how you feel. They'll also dictate your overall health and, of course, your testosterone. So, are you going to look better with optimal testosterone or low testosterone, even with the same macros? But one macro that I do want to touch on that is extremely important for hormone production specifically is fat. Testosterone is derived from cholesterol. So you need fats in your diet. Foods like avocados, olive oils, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, all amazing. Should eat plenty of those. And don't shy away from saturated fats from egg yolks or grass-fed beef because they're essential as well. So healthy fats are a complete non-negotiable for your hormonal health. A quick side note, my first ever diet, like fresh out of dieting, I was 190 pounds. And just for some context, I'm like 5'5". 190 pounds, 5'5". This was like 4 years ago now. My first diet ever. I wanted to lose a bunch of fat, fast, crash diet. Terrible approach, but essentially pulled my fats all the way down. So I was eating like maybe just trace fats because carbs were much more satiating. I was doing all the anabolic recipes. Did that for like 6 months. Sure enough, crashed my testosterone. So not an ideal situation at all. Now it came back, of course, after like 3 months, which quite a long time to have zero testosterone. But yeah, all to say, get your healthy fats in. The lowest I'd go in a diet is 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. So next part of the equation, when it comes to your micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals, there are a few I want to touch on that are directly involved in testosterone production. So we have magnesium, we have vitamin D, and we have zinc. So these three all have really important and have a big impact on testosterone, but only until you've repleted normal status. So if you're low in any of these and then you get to a normal range, you're not going to get an increase in testosterone. But once you reach normal status, more won't do more. So they impact testosterone, but only if you are deficient. So if you're deficient, repleting that to a normal status is going to get you an increase in testosterone, but more on top will not. Now, magnesium and boron help free up more testosterone from sex hormone binding globulin, which essentially grabs a hold of your testosterone so it can't be utilized. Then there's B vitamins like B5 and B6. B5 helps your body produce pregnenolone, the precursor for all your sex hormones. B6 helps reduce prolactin, which can otherwise suppress testosterone. And this is where my contention with, like I said before, if it fits your macros comes in, because if you're not giving your body the nutrients it needs to facilitate all the processes in our body, then sure, you might get results. I got results. I lost a bunch of weight, but you'll not be getting the results you could be if you gave your body all the micronutrients it needs to have optimal hormonal health. So all you have to do when it comes to nutrition, optimize your testosterone, is focus on a whole nutrient-dense diet, keeping it super basic. Try to eat 3 different sources of fruit and 2 to 3 different sources of vegetables per day. Make sure you have an adequate level of fats. Like I said, I wouldn't go lower than 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. And from a nutrition standpoint, you do those, you're chilling. Now, this one might ruffle some feathers, but put the tinfoil hats on because now I want to touch on environmental toxins and how they affect testosterone. Now, these are everywhere. These are in your kitchen. These are in your water if you're not filtering your water, even in your hygiene products. And they've been shown to have an effect on your hormonal health. These toxins, called endocrine disruptors, interfere with your body's ability to produce and regulate testosterone. So these endocrine disruptors can mimic hormones like estrogen, block hormone receptors, or interfere with the enzymes that synthesize hormones. So some things to watch out for if you're not already. Now, I wouldn't go too overboard with these, but the following you definitely want to watch out for: BPA, the testosterone suppressor in plastics, which is one of the most kind of well-known endocrine disruptors now. It's found in plastics, canned goods, receipts. So I would start by switching to glass or stainless steel containers for food and stuff like that. I would not be microwaving food in plastic, as the heat can cause BPA to leach into your food. I have a friend who I lived with the last year, and I think every one of his meals, so 4 or 5 a day, he would microwave in plastic containers. And to make it worse, on top of that, he doesn't eat fruits or vegetables. So close to zero antioxidant intake for him. I pray for him, man, but he's doing well. So next is heavy metals, so like mercury and arsenic. Mercury, for an example, interferes with an enzyme called 11 beta hydroxylase, which is crucial for hormone production. And arsenic can actually block testosterone receptors, preventing your body from using its own testosterone. So if you want to be safe, testing for heavy metal exposure can be a good move, especially if you think you've been exposed to high levels of lead from tap water, or mercury maybe from seafood. Maybe not a bad idea, and they're not that expensive. I actually got one done recently that showed my lead was a little bit elevated, so that was a good thing to notice. So a few things I've done in my house to do the best I can with this. You're not going to be able to be perfect, and there's no point stressing on it because they're kind of unavoidable for the most part, unless, I don't know, you live like Brian Johnson, for example, or Paul Saladino, those guys really on it. But for the majority of us, that's not really realistic. So if you're going to stress on it, you're going to do more harm than the actual toxins themselves. So some basic things I've done and some swaps I've made just using natural cleaning products. So like there's a good company, I can't remember the name, but it's on Amazon. So things like dishwasher soaps, just regular soap, shampoos, laundry detergents, the Windex stuff. I use a company, seventh generation, and they got some good shit. So the next is filtering my tap water. Huge. Like I got a reverse osmosis filter and a shower filter as well to remove heavy metals, chlorine, and fluoride out of the water. I know that one's also controversial as well. But the next thing you want to do is minimize processed foods and canned goods. And this goes along with the whole food diet, because if you're following a whole food diet, you're going to be minimizing processed foods anyway. But many of them are packaged in materials that contain BPA. So I try not to touch receipts, but I don't really trip over that as well. Every time I touch a receipt, it's like, oof. I try to buy organic when I can, and other than that, if you don't have heavy metal toxicity, this is kind of the last stepping stone I would focus your attention on. If you're not dialing in your sleep, diet, stress, then fix those first before you even start tripping over the stuff I just went through, like the endocrine disruptors, because you kind of just like, if you're not optimizing your sleep, you're worried about endocrine disruptors. Like, come on, man. So again, last on the list, don't stress over these. Largely unavoidable in our day to day, so just do the best you can. Now on to the fun stuff, the supplements we can take to maximize our testosterone. And I want to make one thing clear: supplements are exactly that, supplemental. They do work, that's unequivocal, but they don't replace your sleep, lifestyle, nutrition, and stress management. So if those things aren't dialed in, don't go ahead and start wasting your money on supplements. But if you're already nailing the basics, the following supplements will likely increase your testosterone. The very first thing I want you to do is track your diet in an app called Chronometer. It's exactly like MyFitnessPal, but will tell you your micronutrient intake along with your calories and macros. Once you've done that, you can see where your diet is lacking and then supplement accordingly to fill any gaps. So you fill your gaps. Let's say your diet's lacking in B vitamins, so you take a B complex. Now, what are some supplements that can directly increase your testosterone? First, vitamin D, which is an absolute non-negotiable when it comes to testosterone. Research has shown that men with optimal vitamin D levels tend to have higher testosterone levels compared to those who are deficient. So if you're currently deficient, will supplementing with vitamin D increase your testosterone? Yes. I'd get blood work done though first, see where you're at, and then go from there, even though 2000 IU is pretty safe to supplement with. The next is ZMA, which is a blend of zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6. It's been around for quite some time. Same with vitamin D. If you're deficient and you get to normal status, then your testosterone will increase. But if you're already normal in those, adding them on top will not have a further additive effect. Next, ashwagandha, pretty common one, which is an adaptogen, meaning it helps your body adapt to stress. Think of cortisol, the stress hormone, and testosterone like a seesaw. When one goes up, the other goes down. So studies have shown that ashwagandha can lower cortisol quite significantly, and you lower cortisol, testosterone rises. So I would look for the KSM 66 form of ashwagandha, since it is the most well-researched form of ashwagandha. Next supplement, I touched on this one earlier, but it's boron because it can free up testosterone bound to SHBG, giving you more testosterone, essentially free testosterone to go do its thing around the body. Last on the list, Tangarali, which has been shown to increase testosterone. Doesn't work in every person. It's not like a magic pill, but if you have extra cash and you're nailing everything like I said, I don't see why it wouldn't be worth a try. So, we have now covered sleep, gut health, nutrition, environmental toxins, and now supplements. I didn't include training in this one, but one thing to note with training is that the only way it becomes detrimental to your testosterone is if you overtrain and push beyond your current recovery capacity. So, to make sure you don't do this, because I've been there and it's not fun, so track your lifts first. So if week after week you're getting weaker, your lifts are going down, you got to pull back on your volume or deload because that's a good sign you're under recovering. Next, prioritize your recovery by doing what was covered in this podcast. And 3, be mindful of your recovery capacity. We have a recovery bucket, and every single stressor in our life, whether that's physical, like training, or mental, pours into that bucket. So, for example, if you have a stressful month, let's say a lot of stuff is coming at you, you got a heavy work month, uh, a lot of life stressors, pull back on your training a bit because now that other stress in your life is taking up more of that bucket. And you don't want that bucket to overflow because that's when you run into problems. So to wrap it up, all you have to do to optimize your testosterone naturally is first, prioritize your sleep, big pillar there. 2, take care of your gut health. 3, eat a nutrient-dense diet. 4, manage stress. 5, do your best to minimize exposure to environmental toxins. And then 6, supplement strategically. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. And I will see you guys in the next one. If you want more advice on how to optimize your energy, your health, your performance, most importantly, your physique, click the first link in the description for my free 30-day email series, which will help you do all of those, give you a training plan, 4 and 5 time a week option. It'll do your macros, your nutrition for you, your calories as well, and give you a grocery list along with much, much more. Completely free over 30 days. Peace.